The purple mist hung thick between the trees on the jungle moon of Cathara. Vexthel moved like a ghost through the dark forest. His white scales caught small bits of moonlight as he stepped carefully over the wet ground. Every other step made no sound at all. He was different from the other Cathari hunters, where they had dark green scales that helped them hide in shadows. His skin was pale white like old bones. Where they had yellow eyes that glowed in the dark, his were pink and weak in bright light. The other hunters called him Ghost Walker behind his back. Not because he was good at hiding, but because he looked like death itself. Vexthel had been hunting shadow worms for 3 days now. These creatures were the size of earth elephants but moved like snakes. Their black skin made them almost invisible. In the jungle, they had poisonous barbs on their tails that could kill a full-grown Cathari in minutes. Most hunters worked in groups of 5 or 6 to take down just one worm. Vexthel hunted alone. He had to. No one wanted to hunt with the albino freak. The tracks in the mud were fresh. Deep claw marks in the soft earth showed where a large male worm had passed through just hours ago. Vexthel knelt down and touched the marks with his long fingers. The mud was still soft and warm. Very fresh. He stood up and checked his weapons. His plasma rifle hummed quietly on his back. The energy blade on his belt felt heavy and ready. His left arm, his good arm, flexed as he tested his grip. Everything was perfect. The hunt had led him far from his clan's territory. He was now deep in the neutral zone where the jungle was thickest and most dangerous. This was where the biggest shadow worms lived. This was where a hunter could prove himself, even if that hunter was an outcast with white skin and pink eyes. Vexthel followed the trail deeper into the jungle. The trees grew so thick here that almost no light reached the ground. Purple fungi glowed softly on the tree trunks, giving everything a sick, unnatural color. The air smelled of rot and decay. Perfect hunting ground. He heard it before he saw it, a low rumbling sound like distant thunder. The shadow worm was close. Very close. Vexthel dropped to one knee and raised his plasma rifle. His pink eyes searched the darkness ahead. There, a movement between 2 massive trees. Something long and black slithered through the shadows. The worm was huge, much bigger than he had expected. Its head alone was the size of a small vehicle. The creature had not seen him yet. Vexthel took careful aim at the beast's neck, right behind its skull. One clean shot would kill it instantly. He had done this many times before, but as he pulled the trigger, something went wrong. The shadow worm suddenly twisted to the left. The plasma bolt hit its shoulder instead of its neck. The creature screamed, a sound like tearing metal. Green blood sprayed from the wound, but the worm was far from dead. Instead, it was now very angry. The wounded beast spun around faster than anything that size should be able to move. Its yellow eyes locked onto Vexthel's pale form. The hunter was no longer hidden in the shadows. He was exposed alone, and facing a creature 3 times his size. Vexthel rolled to the right, just as the worm's massive tail smashed into the ground where he had been kneeling. The impact shook the earth and sent chunks of dirt flying everywhere. He came up running, his rifle already charging for another shot. The shadow worm was faster than he remembered. It coiled its long body and launched itself forward like a giant spring. Vexthel fired again, this time hitting the creature in the chest. The beast screamed but kept coming. 20 feet, 15 feet, 10 feet. Vexthel dropped his rifle and drew his energy blade. The weapon hummed to life, casting blue light on his white scales. He had fought shadow worms up close before, but never one this large. Never one this angry. The worm's massive head snapped down at him. Vexthel jumped to the side and slashed with his blade, cutting a deep line across the creature's face. Black blood poured from the wound, but the beast barely seemed to notice. They fought for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Vexthel was faster, but the worm was stronger, much stronger. Every time the hunter landed a hit, the creature seemed to get angrier. Every time he dodged an attack, the next one came faster. Finally, Vexthel made a mistake. He jumped left when he should have jumped right. The shadow worm's tail, covered in poisonous barbs, came down like a giant hammer. Vexthel tried to block with his left arm, but the impact was too strong. The sound of breaking bone echoed through the jungle. Vexthel's arm was crushed between his elbow and his shoulder. The barbs on the worm's tail went deep into his flesh, pumping poison directly into his bloodstream. He screamed. Not from pain. Cathari warriors were trained to ignore pain. He screamed from the knowledge that he was about to die alone in this cursed jungle. Killed by a creature he should have been able to defeat easily, the shadow worm raised its tail for the killing blow. But something strange happened. The creature suddenly stopped moving. It looked down at its own chest, where green blood was pouring out faster than before. The plasma bolts and blade cuts had done more damage than Vexthel had realized. The massive beast swayed once, twice, then crashed to the ground, dead. Vexthel had won. But the victory meant nothing now. His left arm hung useless at his side, crushed beyond repair. He could feel the poison spreading through his body like liquid fire. His vision was already starting to blur. He looked around the jungle clearing. No one would find him here. No one would even look for him. The albino outcast would die alone. Just like he had lived, Vexthel picked up his rifle with his good arm and started walking. He had no idea where he was going. He only knew that he had to keep moving, or the poison would kill him where he stood. The jungle seemed to spin around him as he stumbled through the trees. Every step sent waves of pain through his ruined arm. The poison made his thoughts fuzzy and strange. He could barely tell which direction was up. Then, through the purple mist and glowing fungi, he saw something that made no sense. Lights, artificial lights, not the natural glow of the jungle. And voices. Alien voices speaking in a language he did not recognize. Humans. Vexthel's people had been at war with the humans for decades. They were supposed to be weak, soft creatures who could barely fight. Easy prey, but here they were, deep in the most dangerous part of the jungle, setting up some kind of camp. He should kill them. Even dying, even with one arm destroyed, he should be able to kill a few soft humans before the poison finished him off. It would be a good death. Oh, warriors. Death, but Vexthel was too tired to fight, too hurt to care about war. He stumbled forward, crashed through some bush, and collapsed at the edge of their camp. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was a human female with kind eyes rushing toward him, shouting something in her strange language. She looked worried. Why would a human worry about a dying Cathari? It made no sense. Nothing made sense anymore. The poison was winning, and Vexthel let it pull him down into the dark. Dr. Jiwan Park was studying plant samples when the screaming started. She dropped her microscope and ran toward the sound. Her research team was supposed to be alone on this jungle moon. The nearest Cathari settlement was 300 miles away. No one should be screaming in their camp. G1 pushed through the bush and stopped. A massive white creature lay bleeding on the ground just outside their camp. It was obviously Cathari, she could tell by the scales and the long arms. But she had never seen one with white skin before. All the Cathari in the research files had dark green scales. "Stay back," shouted Minho Kim, the team's security officer. He pointed his rifle at the fallen creature. It could be a trap. Giwan ignored him and knelt beside the alien. Up close, she could see how badly hurt it was. The left arm was crushed and bent at a terrible angle. Dark purple blood oozed from dozens of puncture wounds. The creature's breathing was shallow and fast. "It's dying," she said quietly. "Good," said Li, the team's biologist. She stood well back from the creature, her face pale with fear. "Do you know how many humans these things have killed?" Juwan did know. The war between humans and Cathari had been going on for 30 years. Thousands of people had died on both sides. But looking at this injured creature, she didn't see an enemy. She saw a patient. "We can't just let it die," Juwan said. "Why not?" Minho asked. "It would do the same to us." The alien's pink eyes opened and looked directly at Jiwan. There was intelligence there, and something else. Pain, yes, but also ... confusion. The creature tried to say something, but the words came out as a weak growl. "It's trying to talk." Jiwan realized. It's probably calling for help, Suyan said nervously. More of them will come, Jiwan shook her head. Look at it. This one came from deep in the jungle. It's alone. She stood up and faced her team. I'm going to help it. Are you crazy? Minho stepped closer, his rifle still aimed at the creature. That thing is a killer, a predator. The moment it gets better, it will try to kill us all. Maybe, Jiwan said. But right now, it's just hurt and scared. She knelt beside the alien again. Its breathing was getting weaker. Whatever poison was in its system was working fast. If she was going to save it, she had to act now. Hyunwoo, she called to their engineer. I need you to help me move it to the medical tent. Hyunwoo Nam looked uncertain. He was a quiet man who usually stayed out of arguments. But after a moment, he nodded. What do you need me to do? Minho Suyan, you don't have to help, Jiwan said, but please don't try to stop me. Minho lowered his rifle but kept it ready. If that thing tries to hurt you, I'm shooting it. Fair enough, Jiwan said, moving. The creature was harder than she had expected. Even hurt and dying, it was much heavier than a human. Hyunwoo helped her drag it into the medical tent and lift it onto the examination table. G1 had never worked on a Cathari before, but she had studied their biology. Their basic body structure was similar to humans, but everything was bigger and stronger. The bones were thicker, the muscles were denser, and the blood was purple instead of red. The arm is completely destroyed, she told Hyunwoo as she examined the injuries. The bones are crushed, the muscles are torn, and there's massive nerve damage. I'll have to cut it off. Can you do that? Hyunwoo asked. I mean, do you know? How? I've done amputations before, Jawan said. Never on an alien, but the basic principles should be the same. The harder problem was the poison. Dark veins were spreading from the puncture wounds all over the creature's body. Jiwan had no idea what kind of poison it was or how to treat it. She would have to figure it out as she went. I need you to monitor its vital signs, she told Hyunwoo. If anything changes, tell me immediately. The surgery took 18 hours. Ji-won had never worked so hard in her life. Every time she thought she had the poison under control, it would spread to a new part of the creature's body. Every time she stopped the bleeding in one place, it would start somewhere else. The amputation was the easy part. She cut through the damaged arm just below the shoulder, sealed the blood vessels, and closed the wound. The creature's natural healing ability was impressive, much faster than a human's. The poison was what almost killed it. Ji-won had to flush the creature's blood 3 times, replacing it with synthetic plasma while her equipment cleaned out the toxins. Each time she wasn't sure if the alien's heart would start beating again, but it did. Every time. Around hour 12, the creature woke up. Its pink eyes opened and looked around the medical tent in confusion. When it saw Ji-won working on its arm, it tried to sit up. Easy, Ji-won said softly. You're safe. I'm trying to help you. The creature didn't understand her words, but something in her voice made it lie back down. It watched her work with intelligent eyes, never trying to fight or escape. It's trusting you, Hyunwoo said in amazement. It knows you're trying to help. By hour 15, the poison was finally under control. The dark veins were fading and the creature's breathing was getting stronger, but now Ji-won faced a new problem. The creature needed an arm to survive in the jungle. Can you build something? She asked Hyunwoo. Some kind of prosthetic? Hyunwoo looked at the creature's remaining arm, studying how the joints moved. Maybe. We have some servo motors in the equipment storage. And there's titanium plating from the shuttle repair kit. How long would it take? A few hours, if you help me. They worked through the night. Ji-won would operate, then help Hyunwoo build, then go back to check on their patient. The creature never complained, never fought. It just watched them with those strange pink eyes. The prosthetic arm was simple but functional. It connected to the creature's shoulder with a harness that Ji-won made from medical straps. The mechanical fingers could grip and hold things, and the elbow joint moved almost like a real arm. It's not perfect, Hyunwoo said as they attached it to the creature's shoulder. But it should work. The creature sat up slowly and looked at its new arm. It flexed the mechanical fingers, testing how they moved. Then it looked at Jiwon and made a sound that might have been thanks. "You're welcome," Jiwon said, even though she knew it couldn't understand her. Over the next few days, the creature grew stronger. Jiwon brought it food and water, and slowly it began to trust her more. It would let her check its wounds without flinching. It would even let her adjust the prosthetic when something felt wrong. Minho and Suyeon kept their distance, but they stopped complaining about helping an enemy. Even they could see that this creature was different from the stories they had heard about Cathari warriors. "It's almost gentle," Suyeon said one evening as they watched the creature carefully eating the fruit Jiwon had brought it. "I expected it to be more violent." "Maybe they're not all the same," Jiwon said. "Maybe some of them are just as scared of us as we are of them." On the 7th day, the creature stood up and walked to the edge of the camp. It was time to leave. Jiwon knew it couldn't stay. Her team would be picked up by a transport ship in 2 days, and they couldn't take a Cathari with them. The creature looked back at her one last time. It touched its chest with its good hand, then pointed at her. Even without words, Jiwon understood. It was trying to say thank you. Then it reached into a pouch on its belt and pulled out a curved piece of white bone. It held it out to Jiwon. "It's giving you a gift?" Hyunwoo said softly. Jiwon took the bone. It was carved with intricate patterns and felt warm in her hands. She had no idea what it meant, but she could tell it was important. The creature nodded once, then turned and walked into the jungle. Its new prosthetic arm worked perfectly, moving almost like the real thing. In minutes, it was gone. Jiwon stood at the edge of the camp, holding the bone, carving and thinking about what had just happened. She had saved the life of an enemy. But somehow, it didn't feel like she had helped an enemy at all. It felt like she had helped a friend. Vexthel walked through the jungle for 3 days before he stopped to rest. His new mechanical arm worked better than he had expected. The metal fingers could grip branches and rocks. The elbow joint moved smoothly when he climbed over fallen trees. It was not as strong as his real arm had been, but it was enough. He found a cave in the rocks and made camp. For the first time since the shadow worm attack, he felt safe enough to sleep, but sleep did not come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the human female's face, the one who had saved him. Why had she done it? Vexthel had been taught since childhood that humans were weak creatures who killed from a distance. They had no honor, no courage. They were prey, not predators. But the female had worked on him for hours, using her small hands to repair his broken body. She had given him food and water. She had treated him like family. This made no sense to a Cathari warrior. In his culture, you only helped family and close friends. Everyone else was either an ally who could be useful or an enemy who needed to be killed. There was no middle ground. But the humans had helped him without asking for anything in return. Vexthel touched his mechanical arm and tried to understand. Among his people, if someone saved your life, you owed them a blood debt. The debt had to be repaid, usually by killing their enemies or bringing them valuable gifts. But what could he give to creatures who had already given him everything? He thought about this problem for 2 more days. Then he decided to go back to the human camp. The journey took him 6 hours through thick jungle. He moved carefully, using his hunting skills to stay hidden. If other Cathari found out he was visiting humans, they would kill him as a traitor. When he reached the camp, he saw that the humans were getting ready to leave. They had packed most of their equipment into metal boxes. A large flying machine sat in a clearing nearby, ready to carry them away. Vexthel watched from the trees as the humans worked. The female who had saved him was there, along with the 3 males who had helped her. They moved with purpose, but they did not seem happy. The female kept looking toward the jungle, as if she was waiting for something or someone. Vexthel realized she was looking for him, but why? He had already left. The debt was not repaid, but there was nothing more she could do for him. Why would she care if he came back? He almost turned around and left. But then the female said something to one of the males, and Vexthel heard sadness in her voice. Even though he could not understand her words, he knew she was disappointed that he had not returned. This confused him even more. Humans were not supposed to have feelings about Cathari. They were just supposed to fear them. Vexthel made a decision. He stepped out of the trees and walked toward the camp. The male with the rifle saw him first. "Jiwan!" he shouted. "It's back!" The female, Jiwan, turned around and smiled. Actually smiled, as if she was happy to see him. She said something in her language that sounded like a greeting. Vexthel approached slowly, his hands visible to show he was not carrying weapons. He stopped a few feet away from Jiwan and tried to speak in his own language. "I came back," he said carefully. To understand, Jiwan frowned and looked at one of the other males. This one was younger and thinner than the others. He stepped forward and spoke in broken Cathari. "You ... our words?" the young male asked. Vexthel was surprised. "You know my language?" "Little bit," the young male said. "I studied ... languages. I am Jehun. I am Vexthel," the warrior replied. "I came back to ask, why did you help me?" Jehun translated for the others. They talked among themselves for a moment, then Jehun turned back to Vexthel. "She says ... you were hurt, you needed help." "That is enough reason. But I am your enemy," Vexthel said. "My people kill your people kill my people. This is the way." Jehun translated again. Jiwan's response was longer this time, and she spoke with passion. When she finished, Jehun looked troubled. She says, "Maybe the killing should stop. Maybe enemies can choose to be friends." Vexthel felt something strange in his chest. Among his people, such words would be considered madness. Enemies were. Enemies forever. That was the natural order of things. But when Jiwan said it, it sounded ... possible. "What do you want from me?" Vexthel asked. "What payment do you require for saving my life?" Jehun translated, and Jiwan's answer was immediate. She says ... though. "Just ... get well, live good life, be happy." "That is not enough," Vexthel said firmly. "I owe you a blood debt. I must repay it." "What is blood debt?" Jehun asked. Vexthel explained the concept as best he could. When someone saved a Catharius life, the saved person became bound to help their savior. The debt could only be repaid through great service or sacrifice. Jehun translated this for the others. They talked for a long time, and Vexthel could see they were uncomfortable with the idea. Finally, Jehun turned back to him. She says, "If you want to repay debt, then live peacefully. Do not kill humans. That is payment enough." "I cannot promise that," Vexthel said sadly. "I am a warrior. If my clan goes to war, I must fight. It is my duty." "Then try to find another way," Jehun translated Jiwan's response. "When the time comes, remember that enemies can choose to be healers instead of killers." Vexthel thought about this. It was a strange concept, but not entirely impossible. After all, these humans had chosen to heal him instead of kill him. Perhaps he could make a similar choice someday. "I will remember," he said finally. Jiwan smiled again and said something to Jehun. "She wants to check your arm one more time," Jehun explained, "to make sure it works properly." Vexthel held out his mechanical arm. Jiwan examined it carefully, testing the joints and checking the connections. Her touch was gentle, just like when she had operated on him. When she was finished, she nodded with satisfaction. "It is good work," Vexthel said. "Better than I expected." She says, ... Hyunwoo built it. He is good engineer. Arm should last many years. Vexthel looked at Hyunwoo, the quiet male who had helped build his prosthetic. "Thank you," he said in broken human speech. Hyunwoo looked surprised but pleased. He said something back, and Jehun translated. He says ... you are welcome. He hopes it serves you well. The time for departure was approaching. Vexthel could hear the flying machine's engine starting up. Soon the humans would be gone, and he would never see them again. He reached into his belt pouch and pulled out the carved bone claw he had left with them before. But this time he also had something else. From another pouch he took out a small metal disc, a Cathari honor token that warriors gave to those who had shown great courage. "For you," he said to Jiwan, holding out both items. The claw means respect. The disc means You are a brave warrior, even though you do not fight. Jiwan took both gifts and held them carefully. She said something long and emotional to Ji-hoon. She says ... she will treasure these. And she will remember you. She hopes someday our peoples can be friends. Perhaps, Vexthal said, but that day is far away. For now, I must return to my clan. They will ask questions if I'm gone too long. He stepped back and looked at each of the humans in turn. You have given me more than a new arm. You have given me new thoughts, new possibilities. I do not know if I can use them, but I will not forget them. We will not forget you either, Ji-hoon translated Jiwan's response. The flying machine's engines grew louder. It was time to go, Vexthal turned and walked toward the jungle. At the edge of the trees he stopped and looked back. Jiwan was watching him, and there was sadness in her eyes. She raised her hand in farewell. Vexthal raised his mechanical arm in response. Then he disappeared into the jungle. As he walked away, he felt something he had never experienced before. Not just gratitude, but genuine affection for creatures who were supposed to be his enemies. The humans had planted a seed of doubt in his mind about everything he had been taught. He touched his mechanical arm and wondered if that seed would grow into something dangerous or something wonderful. Time would tell. 7 years had passed since the humans repaired Vexthal's arm. 7 years of fighting, hunting, and trying to forget what he had learned in that jungle camp. But the memories would not leave him alone. His mechanical arm had become famous among the Cathari. Other warriors called it the prey arm because it had been built by humans. They said it made him weak, that he should have died with honor instead of accepting help from enemies. Vexthal ignored their insults. The arm worked perfectly, even after years of battle. It was stronger than his original arm had been, and it never got tired. In fights, it gave him an advantage that other warriors did not have. But to his people, it was a mark of shame. He had tried to prove himself worthy despite the prosthetic. He had killed more Shadow Wyerms than any hunter in clan history. He had led successful raids against human settlements. He had earned enough battle honors to become a war chief himself, but none of it mattered. He was still the albino freak with the human arm. The worst part was that he was starting to agree with them. Not about being weak, but about being different. Every time he killed a human in battle, he remembered Jiwan's gentle hands working to save his life. Every time he saw human prisoners, he wondered if they had families who cared about them the way Jiwan had cared about him. These thoughts were dangerous. Warriors were not supposed to think about their enemies as people. They were supposed to see them as targets, nothing more. Vexthal was in his quarters, cleaning his weapons when War Chief Krekstar entered without warning. Krekstar was a massive Cathari with dark green scales and yellow eyes that glowed like fire. He had led their clan for 15 years, and his reputation for cruelty was known throughout the sector. Vexthal, Krekstar said, his voice like grinding stone, we need to talk. Vexthal stood and bowed his head respectfully. What can I do? For you, War Chief? You can explain why you hesitated during the last raid, Krekstar said, stepping closer. My scouts reported that you had a clear shot at the human commander, but you did not take it. Vexthal's blood went cold. He had hoped no one had noticed his moment of doubt. During the attack on the mining station, he had seen the human commander trying to protect a group of civilians. For just a few seconds, he had remembered Jiwan's words about enemies choosing to be healers instead of killers. I was repositioning for a better shot, Vexthal lied. The angle was not good. Do not lie to me, Krekstar snarled. I have been watching you for months. You are not the same warrior you once were. That human arm has infected your mind with their weakness. I have killed more enemies than anyone in this clan, Vexthal said carefully. How can you call me weak? Because you think too much, Krekstar replied. A true warrior does not hesitate. A true warrior does not question. You have been asking strange questions about human behavior, human culture, human motivations. Why? Vexthal said nothing. There was no safe answer to that question. I should have you executed for treason, Krekstar continued. But you are still useful. Your skills are too valuable to waste. So I will give you a chance to prove your loyalty. What do you want me to do? Krekstar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. We have discovered a major human colony world called New Bizin. It has minimal defenses and a large civilian population. The perfect target for a massive raid. Vexthal's stomach clenched. He had heard of New Bizin. It was one of the newer human settlements, mostly families and scientists, not soldiers. What is my role in this raid? He asked. You will lead the assault on the medical facilities, Krekstar said. Hospitals, research centers, anywhere they might be developing new weapons or defenses. Kill everyone you find. Leave nothing standing. Medical facilities. Places where people like Jiwan work to save lives. Vexthal felt sick. When do we attack? He asked. In 2 days, Krekstar said. This will be the largest raid in clan history. Over 300 warriors supported by heavy weapons and combat. Ships. The humans will not expect an attack of this size. It will be a great victory, Vexthal said, trying to keep his voice steady. Yes, it will, Krekstar agreed. And you will prove that you are still a true Cathari warrior. No hesitation this time, no mercy. Kill them all. After Krekstar left, Vexthal sat in his quarters and stared at his mechanical arm. The metal fingers flexed smoothly, just as they had for 7 years. He could still remember the day Hyunwoo had attached it to his shoulder, and how proud the human engineer had looked when it worked perfectly. Now he was expected to use that arm to destroy people like Hyunwoo and Jiwan. Vexthal had always known this day might come. He had always known that someday he would have to choose between his duty to his clan and his debt to the humans who had saved him. He had hoped it would never happen, but hope was a luxury that warriors could not afford. The next day, he joined the other warriors in preparation for the raid. They cleaned their weapons, checked their armor, and sang the old battle songs. Everyone was excited about the coming victory. The humans of New Bizin had no idea what was coming for them. Vexthal went through the motions, but his heart was not in it. He kept thinking about Jiwan's words. Maybe enemies can choose to be friends. At the time, it had seemed impossible. Now, faced with the prospect of killing innocent people, it seemed like the only sane choice. But if he chose friendship over duty, what would that make him? A traitor to his own people? An outcast who belonged nowhere? That evening, as the warriors made final preparations, Vexthal walked to the edge of the camp. The stars were bright in the alien sky, and somewhere among them was the world called New Bizin. In less than 24 hours, it would be burning unless he did something to stop it. The thought came to him suddenly, like a bolt of lightning. He could warn the humans. He could send them a message about the coming attack. It would be treason of the highest order, but it would also be the right thing to do. But how could he betray his own people? These were warriors he had fought beside for years. Some of them were his friends. If he warned the humans, many Cathari would die in the failed attack. Vexthal flexed his mechanical fingers and thought about blood debts. He owed Jiwan and her team his life. But he also owed his clan his loyalty. The two debts were now in conflict, and he could not serve both. He thought about what Jiwan had said about living peacefully, about finding another way, about choosing to be a healer instead of a killer. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was another way. Maybe it was time to repay his debt to the humans, no matter what it cost him. Vexthal made his decision. He would warn the humans about the attack. He would save innocent lives, even if it meant destroying his own life in the process. The albino warrior walked back to his quarters and began composing a message that would change everything. His mechanical arm moved smoothly as he typed, just as it had for 7 years. But this time, instead of taking lives, it would be used to save them. It was time to choose between being a warrior and being a person. And for the first time in his life, Vexthal chose to be a person. Vexthal sat in his quarters, staring at the communication device in his hands. The message was already written. All he had to do was send it. But once he pressed the button, there would be no going back. The message was simple. Large Cathari. Attack force coming to New Bizin. 300 warriors. Heavy weapons. Attack begins at dawn local time. Prepare defenses. The debt is repaid. He had encrypted it using an old human military code that he had learned from captured equipment. The humans would be able to read it, but his own people would not understand it if they intercepted the transmission outside his quarters. He could hear the other warriors preparing for battle. They were singing war songs and sharpening their weapons. Some of them were his friends, good warriors who trusted him to fight beside them. If he sent this message, many of them would die, but if he did not send it, thousands of innocent humans would die instead. Vexthal thought about Jiwan's gentle hands working to save his life. He thought about Hailu's proud smile when the prosthetic arm worked perfectly. He thought about Jihun's patient efforts to help them understand each other. These people had shown him kindness when they could have shown him death. Now he had to choose between saving people like them or staying loyal to his clan. His mechanical fingers moved across the controls. The message was sent before he could change his mind. It was done. He was now a traitor to his own people. Vexthal deleted all evidence of the transmission and put the communication device away. Tomorrow, when the attack failed, Krekstar would suspect what had happened. But by then, it would be too late. He tried to sleep, but his mind would not rest. In a few hours, he would have to fight against humans who were prepared for his attack. He would have to pretend to be surprised when they fought back harder than expected. He would have to watch his fellow warriors die because of his betrayal. The hardest part was that he still was not sure if he had made the right choice. Dawn came too soon. The Cathari attack force assembled in the darkness before sunrise. 300 warriors in full battle armor, armed with plasma rifles and energy blades. Combat ships waited in orbit, ready to provide support. Vexthal stood with his assault team, the group assigned to attack the medical facilities. 25 warriors, all experienced fighters. They trusted him to lead them to victory. Remember, he told them as they prepared to board the transport ships. Our target is the hospital complex on the east side of the city. We go in fast. Eliminate all resistance and complete our mission. The warriors nodded. They were eager for battle, excited about the easy victory they expected, but Vexthal knew it would not be easy. If his message had been received, the humans would be ready for them. The transport ships dropped through the atmosphere of New Bizan just as the sun rose. Vexthal looked out the window and saw a beautiful world covered in green forests and blue oceans. Small cities dotted the landscape, connected by silver roads. It looked peaceful, safe. Too bad it was about to become a battlefield. The first sign that something was wrong came when the transport ships entered the atmosphere. Human fighter jets appeared out of nowhere, attacking the Cathari fleet with missiles and energy weapons. The pilots were skilled and aggressive, nothing like the weak resistance they had expected. They were ready for us, said one of the warriors in Vexthal's transport. How did they know we were coming? Perhaps they detected our ships, Vexthal. Lead, it does not matter, we will still win. But he could see that the human defenses were much stronger than expected. Ground-based weapons were firing at the transport ships. Military vehicles were racing toward the landing zones. The humans had clearly been preparing for this attack. Vexthal's transport was hit by a missile just before it reached the ground. The ship crashed in a field outside the city, killing 3 warriors and injuring 5 others. The survivors crawled out of the wreckage, their easy victory already turning into a hard fight. Move toward the hospital, Vexthal ordered. Stay together and watch for ambush. They ran across the field toward the city. Human soldiers were waiting for them behind barricades and defensive positions. The battle was fierce but brief. The humans were well prepared and fought with desperate courage. Vexthal's team reached the hospital complex, but they found it heavily defended. Human soldiers had turned the medical facility into a fortress. Patients had been evacuated, and the building was now a military stronghold. They knew we were coming for the hospital, said another warrior. This is not coincidence. Vexthal's heart sank. The humans had not just received his warning, they had acted on it perfectly. They had prepared exact defenses for the Cathari attack plan. There was no way this could be explained as lucky guessing. The battle raged for hours. Vexthal fought alongside his warriors, but his heart was not in it. He was watching his friends die because of his betrayal. Every time a Cathari fell, he felt responsible, but every time he saw human medics rescuing wounded soldiers, he remembered why he had made his choice. These people were trying to save lives, not take them. By midday, the Cathari attack was clearly failing. Half the warriors were dead or wounded. The human defenses were holding strong. Krekstar's voice came over the communication system, ordering a retreat. "Fall back to the ships," he commanded. "This attack is over." But there was anger in his voice and suspicion. Vexthal's team fought their way back to the landing zone, carrying their wounded. Only 12 of the original 25 warriors were still alive. The others had died for nothing. As they reached the transport ships, Krekstar was waiting for them. His yellow eyes burned with fury. "Someone warned them," he said loudly, so all the warriors could hear. "Someone told the humans we were coming. Someone is a traitor." The surviving warriors looked at each other with suspicion. Who among them could have betrayed their own people? "I want everyone searched," Krekstar continued. "Equipment, personal items, everything. The traitor is here, and I will find them." Vexthal's blood ran cold. If they searched his quarters, they might find evidence of the transmission. Even if they did not, Krekstar already suspected him. "War chief," said one of the warriors. "Perhaps the humans just got lucky. Perhaps they detected our ships early." "No," Krekstar snarled. "They knew exactly where we would attack. They knew our targets, our timing, our strategy. Only someone with access to the battle plans could have given them that information." His burning eyes fixed on Vexthal. "And there is only one warrior here who has reason to help humans. Only one who owes them a debt." The other warriors stepped away from Vexthal, suddenly understanding. The albino warrior with the human arm. The one who had been saved by enemy medics. The one who had been acting strangely for months. "You," Krekstar said, pointing at Vexthal. "You sent them a warning." Vexthal could have denied it. He could have claimed innocence and demanded proof. But he was tired of lying. Tired of pretending to be something he was not. "Yes," he said simply. "I warned them." The words fell like stones into water. For a moment nobody moved. Then the warriors around him raised their weapons. "Why?" Krekstar demanded. "Why would you betray your own people?" "Because they are not just my people," Vexthal said. 7 years ago, humans saved my life when they could have let me die. Today, I saved theirs. The debt is repaid." "You are a traitor," Krekstar said, "and traitors die." Vexthal nodded. "I know, but I would rather die as a traitor than live as a killer of innocents." He activated his energy blade with his mechanical arm. The weapon hummed to life, casting blue light on his white scales. Around him, 25 warriors prepared to kill him, but Vexthal felt no fear. For the first time in his life, he had done the right thing. Whatever happened next, he could face it with honor. "The debt is repaid," he said again, and prepared to fight his final battle. The battle on the landing field lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours to Vexthal. 25 warriors against one. Even with his mechanical arm giving him extra strength, he could not win. But he fought with everything he had, his energy. Blade moved like lightning, cutting through armor and weapons. His prosthetic arm never got tired, never slowed down. For a few moments, he was the perfect warrior his people had always wanted him to be, but there were too many of them. A plasma bolt caught him in the shoulder. An energy blade cut deep into his leg. Slowly, they wore him down. "Enough!" Krekstar shouted. "Take him alive. I want him to suffer before he dies." The warriors surrounded Vexthal, weapons aimed at his heart. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but he still held his blade ready. "You cannot escape," Krekstar said. "Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Vexthal smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "I do not want to escape. I want to send one final message." Before anyone could stop him, he activated his personal communicator. The device was already set to broadcast on all frequencies, including human military channels. "This is Vexthal of the Cathari," he said clearly. "The attack on New Bizan has failed. The human Dr. Jiwan Park saved my life 7 years ago. Today, I saved the lives of her people. The debt is repaid. Krekstar shot the communicator out of his hand, but it was too late. The message had been sent. You fool, the war chief snarled. Now the humans know who helped them. They will use this against us. Good, Vexthal said. Let them know that. Not all Cathari are killers. Let them know that some of us can learn. Krekstar raised his weapon to kill the traitor, but another warrior grabbed his arm. Wait, the warrior said. Look at the sky. They all looked up. Human ships were approaching fast. Military vessels armed with powerful weapons. The failed attack had brought reinforcements. We need to leave, Krekstar said. Now, what about him? Asked one of the warriors, pointing at Vexthal. Leave him, Krekstar said with disgust. Let the humans have their pet traitor. He is no longer one of us. The warriors boarded their ships and flew away, leaving Vexthal alone and bleeding on. The landing field. He watched them go and felt nothing, no sadness, no regret. He had made his choice, and he would face the consequences. The human ships landed nearby. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They surrounded Vexthal carefully, unsure if he was a threat. I am not your enemy, he said in broken human speech. I sent the warning. I am ... The soldiers did not understand his words, but they could see he was badly wounded. They called for medics and kept their weapons ready. A human officer approached. She was young, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. Something about her seemed familiar. You are the one who warned us, she said in perfect Cathari. Why? Because it was right, Vexthal replied. Because I owed a debt to Dr. Jiwan Park. The officer's eyes widened. Jiwan Park? The xenobiologist? You know her? She is my sister, the officer said. I am Dongyun Park. She told me about you many years ago. About the albino Cathari with the prosthetic arm. Vexthal felt a strange warmth in his chest. Your sister saved my life. I have finally repaid the debt. Yes, Dongyun said softly. You have. The medics arrived and began treating Vexthal's wounds. They worked quickly and efficiently, just like Jiwan had done 7 years ago. The same gentle hands, the same caring touch. Will I be executed? Vexthal asked as they loaded him onto a stretcher. I do not know, Dongyun replied honestly. You helped us, but you are still technically an enemy. The decision will be made by higher authorities, Vexthal nodded. He had expected this. At least he would die knowing he had done the right thing, but death did not come. Instead, he found himself in a human medical facility, being treated by skilled doctors. His wounds healed quickly, and his prosthetic arm was repaired where it had been damaged in the fight. Days passed, then weeks. Vexthal waited in his hospital room, expecting to be taken away for execution at any moment. But the humans seemed more interested in talking to him than killing him. They asked him about Cathari culture, about their military tactics, about their reasons for fighting. He answered honestly, holding nothing back. If he was going to die, he would at least help them understand his people. Then, one day, a familiar face appeared in his doorway. Hello, Vexthal, said Dr. Jiwan Park. She was older than he remembered, with gray streaks in her hair and lines around her eyes. But her smile was the same, kind and warm and genuine. Jiwan, he said, struggling to sit up, you came. Of course I came, she said, entering the room. I heard what you did. How you saved all those people on New Bisen? I repaid my debt, Vexthal said simply. Yes, you did, Jiwan agreed. But you did more than that. You showed that enemies can become friends. That understanding is possible between our peoples. She sat down in the chair beside his bed. I have a proposal for you. What kind of proposal? We are starting a new program, Jiwan explained. A peace initiative. We want to find ways for humans and Cathari to coexist without war. We need someone who understands both cultures. Someone who can bridge the gap between our peoples. Vexthal was quiet for a long moment. You want me to be a translator? More than that, Jiwan said. We want you to be a teacher, a guide. Someone who can show others that peace is possible. I am a traitor to my own people, Vexthal said. They will never trust me again. But there are others like you, Jawan said. Other Cathari who are tired of war. Other outcasts who want a different path. You could help them find it. Vexthel looked at his prosthetic arm. The metal fingers moved smoothly, just as they had for 12 years. The arm that had made him an outcast among his people, but had also saved his life. Where would I go? He asked. What would I do? There is a space station called Kepler Station, Jawan said. It is neutral territory where different species can meet safely. You could work there, helping refugees and outcasts from both sides. And you think this will work? You think war can end? I think it has to start somewhere, Jawan said. And I think you are the perfect person to start it. Vexthel thought about this for a long time, then he nodded slowly. I will try, he said, but I cannot do it alone. You will not be alone, Jawan promised. There are others who want peace, humans and Cathari both. Together we can build something better. 5 years later, Vexthel stood in the main hall of Kepler Station. Behind him were 12 other Cathari, all refugees, all outcasts, all tired of war. They had come to him one by one, seeking a different path. In front of him were human diplomats, scientists, and peacekeepers. Between them stood young Cathari who had never known life without war, learning that enemies could become friends. You repaired more than a limb that day, Vexthel said to Jawan, who stood beside him. You repaired the idea that enemies must stay enemies forever. No, Jawan said with a smile. You did that. I just gave you the tools. Vexthel looked at his prosthetic arm, still working perfectly after all these years. It had been built from salvaged parts by humans who had every reason to hate him. But instead of hate, they had chosen compassion. Now it was his turn to build something from broken pieces. Not an arm, but a bridge between worlds that had been at war for too long. The circle was complete, the debt was repaid, and for the first time in his life, Vexthel was exactly where he belonged.